My boyfriend's friend and her friends drunkenly FaceTime my boyfriend, screaming at him to show them his fat schlong, and I'm stunned because why would they think that's okay, and I'm worried that he's done something to make them feel it was acceptable. Posted by u/Throra76676676. Title just about sums it up. Forgive me if I'm making any formatting errors, I'm a long-time lurker and first-time poster. And I'm on mobile. Anyways. So my boyfriend Nick, 22M, and I, 20F, have been together for 3 years. He's a super nice, caring guy and I've never had any serious doubts about things until last night. As the title says, last night, while he was with me at my place, he got a FaceTime call from his friend Melissa. Melissa has known him a lot longer than I have, they grew up together, so I have always respected their friendship. I've also met Melissa many times and she was always super nice to me and super fun, and we follow each other on social media. I've never had any reason to dislike her or disapprove of their friendship, so in all honesty her FaceTiming my boyfriend somewhat late at night didn't raise any immediate alarm bells. However, before he answered he warned me that Melissa was on a beach trip with a few other girlfriends. There were 3 other girls, 4 total including Melissa. Without trying to get too carried away, I'd like to add some context. Obviously my boyfriend Nick is 2 years older than me. Melissa, and her 3 other friends, are all closer to Nick's age, 22 to 23, where I am yet to be 21. Including that info also expresses the fact that Melissa and these 3 other girls and my boyfriend all went to school together, all in the same grade through high school and maybe middle school as well. Point being, they've known my boyfriend for quite some time. They've also known he has been dating me for 3 years, as these 3 other girls also follow me on social media like Melissa. I've met these other girls a handful of times, but he's not as close to them as he is with Melissa. I guess the best way to summarize is that they're Melissa's friends, but because they all went to school together and are the same age, they're all fairly good friends. Anyways, he tells me Melissa is FaceTiming him. He tells me she's with these 3 other friends and they're at the beach. I told him he should answer then, they're probably having a good time and just want to tell him about it. He answers. Melissa and her 3 friends all immediately start screaming my boyfriend's name. They then begin to scream his name, followed by show us your fat D. They were clearly hammered, but I was mortified. WTF? My boyfriend seemed pretty shocked too, told them he was with me, and asked what the hell that was about. The girls all had a mix of explanations, they're drunk, they meant to call someone else, it was an accident. I think I'm really struggling with this because I'm just so shocked and confused. I feel as though I can't blame my boyfriend because clearly this was not his fault, but at the same time I do not understand why these girls, these women actually, we're all grown adults, would think that was an appropriate thing to say to someone who has been in a committed relationship for years. It just doesn't make sense. I feel like I'm also struggling with this because it makes me wonder if my boyfriend has created an atmosphere where these women think acting this way towards him is okay. I feel like he would never do something like that, but I'm just at such a loss. Why would these women think that was okay, and why did they only stop when Nick told them he was with me? Also, for what it's worth, I'm obviously upset with these women too. We didn't hang out often, but I'm upset that the few times we did, they were always nice to me and then they did something so vulgar and inappropriate. I just don't understand. I'm also upset at the fact that they did not produce a single valid explanation. Clearly they did not mean to call someone else. They gleefully screamed my boyfriend's name half a dozen times as soon as he answered. And how was that an accident? This whole incident happened around 11 last night and I fell asleep fairly shortly after. When me and Nick woke up this morning we talked about it briefly and then he left for work. Melissa texted him and said something along the lines of "Nick, you're being weird, we were just really drunk. Tell up we're sorry." They were hammered. That was obvious. I still just don't understand why they did it. I've been inebriated and never have I FaceTimed someone's boyfriend of several years and asked them to show me their D. It just doesn't add up. Nor does it really add up that Melissa said Nick was being weird. How was he acting odd? I think WTF? Was a pretty standard response to that sort of thing, unless they're used to him acting a different way? I just do not understand. The only person I've talked to about this was my best friend. She knows Nick well, only through me though, so maybe there is some bias, and thinks that these women were probably just wasted. She said she agrees that while she and I would never do something like that under the influence, some women will. I suppose she could be right, but again I have a hard time making peace with that simply because I would never do that and these women are all 2 to 3 years older than me. I suppose I just can't understand why older women would have such a lower level of maturity. I'm sorry for the long post/rant, but I'm pretty upset and confused. I would love to just be able to shake this off, but it really shocked me to my core. I just keep hearing all four of their voices and the chorus of "Show us your fat D," and I can't get over it. WTF was that? So yeah. Any advice or other perspective is appreciated. I'm just at a total loss of explanation right now. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Does Nick have a fat D? If so, it's possible that one of them saw it, then it was discussed while they were drunk, and they went on a crusade to see the fat D. If his D isn't too fat, well, they were probably just drunk and screwing around. Super inappropriate, but that might mean there's less meaning behind the call since it wasn't discussed beforehand. Of course, it could still be option 2, and he just has a fat D coincidentally. Commenter 2. Honestly, it sounds like they were hammered and not thinking straight. Nick was obviously upset and confused and called them out on their craziness. This is more of a situation where Nick needs to talk to his friends about boundaries. Commenter 3. I think you're just feeling a little insecure and are reading too much into this. Sometimes, the demon rum makes people do really stupid things. Commenter 4. Reading too much into this? The other women have zero boundaries and respect for neither Op nor her boyfriend. If they turn into WHRs as soon as they drink, Op and her boyfriend would be better off without them. Even after getting sober, they guilt trip her boyfriend because he was acting weird instead of owning their crappy behavior. Op's response. Thank you for this. Reading all the comments and starting to wonder if I'm overreacting, but this about sums it up. They didn't seem to have any respect for boundaries or our relationship and only stopped when told I was in the room too. It's just such a mess, but I'm glad others understand my perspective. I also agree that saying my boyfriend was acting weird the next morning was a bit of a slap in the face. What was he supposed to do? Whip it out on FaceTime? Update 5 days later. Before I get too carried away, I would like to thank everyone who weighed in on this. I didn't expect it to get much traction, and I really appreciate the number of you who commented offering your own insight. A lot of the comments made me laugh too, so thank you for that. I honestly don't have a crazy update that a lot of you seem to be expecting. I talked to Nick, and I explained to him exactly why this whole situation made me so uncomfortable. Thank you to all the kind Redditors who simply suggested doing that. I also expressed to him that their lack of an explanation made me all the more uncomfortable. He said he understood exactly where I was coming from, and we seemed to get a better understanding of each other after the talk. He told me that Melissa had apologized more throughout the next day. She had said that she and her friends were beyond smashed, and they thought it would be a funny thing to do to FaceTime all their guy friends and ask to see, well, you know. So did those of you in the comments who suggested Nick was not the only one who got this call. You are correct. She also went on to explain that because they were so wasted, they didn't realize how awkward it was until Nick said, Melissa, Op is right here. Additionally, their mix of it was an accident, and we meant to call someone else. Explanations sort of make sense now when you consider just how drunk they were and the fact that they were, in fact, calling several other dudes that night. Melissa also offered to call me directly and further apologize. All the contact she and my boyfriend had throughout this conversation was him texting her, and he showed me afterward. I didn't really think that was necessary. I did not want to draw this situation out more than it already had gone on. I feel as though she's sorry enough, and she does not have my number anyway, for those who are probably going to say she should have called anyway. At this point, I kinda just wanted to be over the whole mess. I did, however, ask my boyfriend if he and Melissa, or any of her friends, had any sort of relations prior to meeting me. He said no, and I believe him. Full disclaimer, I never thought I would be posting this on Reddit, but I met my boyfriend when he was 19 and he was not very experienced with women. Not even in the kissing department. So yeah, I fully believe him. He was even a bit insecure about his inexperience when we met. The rest of the girls, Melissa's friends, never apologized other than Melissa texting something to the effect of "we're sorry." Because I don't know them that well, and because they probably just feel super uncomfortable about all of this, I'm not going to ask for an apology. I will, however, think of them slightly differently and probably prefer my boyfriend not go to any parties or social functions they might be at. No hard feelings. It's just that the whole incident, paired with them not really holding themselves accountable, unlike Melissa, kinda rubs me the wrong way. I will say that because they did not make the call, they probably hold themselves to be less guilty than Melissa, which is fair, but I can't help but feel like if I were in the situation I would still reach out to apologize for the boundaries crossed. Oh well. For those of you who kindly suggested Nick may be cheating with Melissa, I highly doubt it. I have been cheated on once before. Perhaps I should have included that in the original post, as it might have added more context to why this made me so upset. Anyways, I've been cheated on before and I do not see any of the signs in Nick. I also think he would have to be pretty skilled if he were doing this, as Melissa has been living in college for the past few years, hours away from us, and Nick and I have been together almost 24/7 the past few months because COVID is still so bad in our country. And above all else, I trust Nick. I do not think he would do this. And finally, to answer the question everyone has been dying to know, yes, my boyfriend is particularly well endowed. I don't know that I call it a soup can, as someone kindly suggested in the comments on my other post, but yeah, it's fat. So their request to see his fat D made me all the more uncomfortable. When I finally worked up the nerve to explain this to my boyfriend, he laughed, and then immediately started blushing. Gotta love that guy. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. But how do they know about it? Ops response. He got the nickname Big D Nick in high school. Wish I was kidding. Commenter 2. How did he get that nickname without much experience with women? Ops response. Locker room? Male friends? High schoolers being the instigating, hormone-filled individuals they often are? Or, probably the most likely, it started out as a joke because it rhymed, then ironically proved to be true. Commenter 3. So I don't mean for this to come off antagonistic at all, and if it does, I'm sorry, but I have a question. You said you would prefer your boyfriend not to go to any parties/social functions they would be at. Does that mean you don't want your boyfriend to be friends with this group of friends? Because he's been friends with these people for years, and it would be a silly thing to change or even break friendships over. I'm about the same age as you guys and don't drink/party like some of my friends. I've definitely gotten a drunken call or two where my friends have just been screaming random stuff at me. You're right, it's really annoying, but it's not malicious at all, and they're usually a bit embarrassed by it the next day. In your case, I get being more annoyed because they're asking to see your boyfriend's D. I think in any other scenario it would be really crappy, but in this, it just seems super innocuous. They're young, they got drunk and called a friend, and we're just yelling random stuff at them without realizing the implications of what they were saying. Honestly, I think you should just forget about it and move on. If this continues to be repeated behavior or if you notice them doing other things, then I would talk to your boyfriend, but if this is just some silly drunken thing, I don't see the point of thinking of them differently or asking your boyfriend to change his relationship with them. Ops downvoted response. I totally get where you are coming from, but to reiterate, and I'm sorry if this wasn't clear in my original post, he's only really friends with Melissa. The other girls are Melissa's friends, and he knows them quite well, because they all went to high school together, but he isn't close with the other 3 girls by any means. He's probably seen each of them less than 5 times in the 3 years that we've been dating. I've only met each of them a couple of times, but we follow each other on social media. I don't want to be controlling of him by any means, so I will never demand he not attend an outing, but I don't think I am damaging his social life too much by wanting him to slightly distance himself from these 3 women. Again, they are not really that close in the first place, and I only ever received an apology from Melissa. Because they, the 3 other girls and my boyfriend, aren't the best of friends in the first place, and because the other girls did not apologize, I don't really feel like I'm doing too much harm by simply preferring he not hang out with them. I've also expressed this bit to Nick, and again he understands. It's difficult to be comfortable with your boyfriend hanging out with 3 women who asked to see his D and then never acknowledged it nor apologized. And besides, where we live, COVID is still very much a problem, so I doubt I'll have to worry about bumping into them at parties anytime soon. Also, I have not asked him to distance himself from Melissa. Although the situation made me thoroughly uncomfortable, it was not enough to warrant ruining their whole friendship that started before I even met Nick. Melissa apologized, and I believe she's sorry. These other 3 did not apologize, and they don't have much of a friendship with my boyfriend worth salvaging anyway. Commenter 4. This is probably because I'm really old and a hermit, but seeing people 5 times in 3 years would be an achievement for me. I have a really good friend from uni, and the last time I saw him, his wife was pregnant. We recently met up, and the baby is now walking and talking. My point being that you can't measure friendship by how often you see people. From what you've said, it sounds like they are friends. They've known each other a long time, and they also have Melissa as a common factor, which would potentially make them closer, etc. Does he class them as friends? I've been in relationships where I've had to change my behaviors through no fault of my own, so I really would caution you not to let this one incident get in the way of your boyfriend's friendships and social life. It seems like you have a good, healthy relationship with good communication, so there is no reason for you not to trust him. Ops downvoted response. That is a fair point, but I can't help but feel as though if they really were his friends, they would at least say something about it. Maybe I'm expecting too much out of them, but I feel like at least a text to my boyfriend saying, "Hey, sorry about last night" would have been more than enough. Drunk or sober, intentional or accidental, they crossed a line. Melissa apologized, more than once, for this, but none of the other girls did. I feel like it may be worth mentioning that my boyfriend agrees with me in a sense. He openly said he thinks it was crappy of them not to say anything about it, knowing they caused a bit of drama and made both me and my boyfriend quite uncomfortable. Keep in mind, it was all four of them saying it, not just Melissa. He told me he has no problem taking a step back, as the whole incident made him feel as though they did not have much respect for me, seeing as they did not apologize to me or my boyfriend.